Ag Bioscience, the #1 ag tech podcast globally, is now available on video. Hear from leaders and innovators across food, animal health, plant science, ag tech, and agriculture. Mondays at 6 a.m. on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, subscribe and leave us a review. It's the Ag Bioscience Podcast with Agronovis Indiana. Get more information at agronovisindiana.com.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Thursday, June 18th, 2026. I'm Alex Brown. Knox County is seeing a wave of housing development as local leaders work to attract new residents, support workforce growth, and address a long-standing housing shortage. The recent growth comes after a 2021 housing study that identified a need for hundreds of additional units across the county, says Knox County, Indiana Economic Development CEO Chris Pfaff.
If we want to grow the population of Knox County, we needed to be building hundreds of housing units each year. And we took that information and we basically shopped that to every housing builder and developer, certainly locally, but in the region and really statewide.
5 years later, that effort has led to new construction across the county, including a $35 million apartment complex in Vincennes, more than 20 new homes in Bicknell, and a student construction program building houses while training future workers. Executives from Microsoft joined local officials Wednesday to break ground on the tech giant's $1 billion data center campus in Porte. Officials expect the first 3 data center buildings on the campus to be complete in 2029, with the first phase of the campus ultimately having 6 buildings. Pittsburgh-based aluminum producer Alcoa has announced the ratification of a new labor agreement with the United Steelworkers union, representing hundreds of workers at Alcoa's plant in Newburgh. The company said the agreement was ratified by a wide margin of union members, though a specific percentage was not provided. From the #1 source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise@ibj.com to learn more.
Indiana Economic Development Corporation leaders say the state's $1 billion economic development grant program is right on schedule. IIB's Aubriana Herron has more.
IEDC Vice President of Regional Development, Jim Rawlinson, said Wednesday that the first round of the Regional Economic Acceleration and Development Initiative, or READI, is coming to a close this year. READI 1.0, which began in 2021, is funding 421 projects around the state with federal pandemic relief money. Of those, 281 are beginning to close out, according to the IEDC. All $500 million has been obligated, with $487 million going to projects and $430 million of that dispersed. Rawlinson said the state is on track for all funding to be dispersed by the end of this year, as required by the American Rescue Plan Act. READI 2.0, begun in 2023, is also coming along. The second round of funding came from the state's flush post-pandemic coffers. About 154 of the 399 projects are fully approved and about $55 million in funding dispersed. Another $391 million has been obligated. IEDC has roughly $97 million left to assign. Indianapolis-based Lilly Endowment Incorporated contributed additional funding for blight and art help. The organization offered up to $185 million to projects redeveloping vacant and blighted properties into productive community assets. Of that, $151 million has been awarded across 46 projects, according to the IEDC. The quasi-public agency plans to have all funding obligated before the end of the year. Aubriana Herron, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Indianapolis-based Elanco Animal Health announced today that it plans to establish a $25 million corporate venture capital program to support, invest in, and advance innovation in animal health. Elanco said the program will target investments in animal health therapeutics and technologies designed to improve care. The company described its investment as a multi-year commitment but didn't immediately elaborate on the time period over which it would disperse the funding. Upland Brewing Company is continuing to grow its presence in Indiana with the acquisition of Floyd County Brewing Company and the Thurston, Maine campus in New Albany. The Bloomington-based craft beer company is not disclosing its financial investment in the Southern Indiana brewery, but said all operations in New Albany will remain open during the transition period. Floyd County Brewing Company was founded by Brian and Julie Hampton, who grew the business from a small brew pub to the development of Thurston, Maine, a campus that encompasses an entire city block with food, drink, and entertainment venues, including the Enchanted Forest and Music Hall. Upland said it does not anticipate any significant changes in staffing numbers as a result of the acquisition. Former Vice President Mike Pence is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports and entertainment, and beyond. Available now on the IBJ Media app or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand.